Okay, so long overdue discussion because there's lots of
Yeah,
stuff to discuss. So why don't we start with talking about Falcon and the Winter Soldier? Since
yeah.
I know you just finished watching the episode, and I just finished watching the episode not long ago. So let's talk about
It's,
that for a little bit.
I was a little behind. I just watched the two latest episodes.
Yeah, yeah, I wasn't that far behind, but I kept forgetting all day today that there was a new episode, and it's like I'd remember at inopportune times, like how I usually will remember something at while I'm driving. Remember, oh, I need to send an email, kind of thing,
Yeah,
and it's basically like anytime that I was like in the middle of doing anything, I think to myself, oh yeah, there's a new Falcon and a Winter Soldier, and anytime I sit down at my TV, I'm like, what am I gonna watch?
yeah.
Let's look on YouTube or something. I don't know because I can't.
I've got too much stuff to watch right now. I don't even know where to start anymore.
Yeah. So Falcon and the Winter Soldier. If you're somebody like me who was a big fan of 1980s Captain America, like when Mark Gruenwald was writing it, there's a lot of stuff to love here, and a
Yeah,
lot of the characters and concepts that this particular series are based on. It's from that Mark Gruenwald run of Captain America, where you have John Walker and Flag Smasher and Baron Zemo,
battle.
big villain during that time, and
Spoilers again. If you haven't watched the show yet, Battlestar died, and I'm really upset about that.
yeah, that was one where I was like, when he first showed up, I'm like, oh hey, Battlestar, because I
Yeah,
wasn't expecting him. They hadn't announced he was going to be on there that I'd seen or anything like that, so
yeah,
that was cool. But yeah, he died.
yeah,
It's it's one of those things like in the comic book. And spoilers on a 40-year-old comic book if you haven't read it. I don't think it's quite that old. I think it was like maybe like 35 years old. But in the comic book, the thing that triggers John Walker and makes him go on a murderous rampage is his parents are killed by
yeah,
enemies of his, the Watchdogs, and he basically murders every single one of them that is responsible for the death of his parents, and probably some that aren't. but
yeah.
uh, but yeah, in this, I guess to kind of streamline it, it was Lamar that
Yeah.
died, and
Unfortunately,
yeah, that's what causes him to snap, and he murders one of the Flag Smashers. I'm going to interject real quick with like one thing that kind of annoys me is in the comic book, Flag Smasher is one individual,
yeah,
and his organization that he's the leader of is called Ultimatum. And for
right.
some reason, they decided to make them all called the Flag Smashers, and Flag Smasher is now a girl.
Yeah.
But I'm just used to that kind of stuff.
You know what? I love the actress. I don't have a problem with her at all. I'm a big fan of hers
Oh yeah,
actually
she's good.
from Solo. I love Enfy's Nest. I have the figure here. I should probably pull that out. But yeah, as soon as I saw her, I have a hard time separating her from Enfy's Nest in Solo. And but she's doing a great job, and
Oh
she's
yeah,
beautiful.
totally. I kind of wish that they just made a new character though,
Yeah, yeah.
and that way they
If they're
could
gonna
have
do
had, like,
Flag Smasher, I would have preferred if they had gone like the Bond villain route. I wanted to see somebody who, seemed a little more dangerous and not just some, young girl who's misled.
yeah,
But I'm not calling the shots over there. So
yeah. But like you said, she's a good actress, and
yeah,
I like seeing her and stuff. So I'm not gonna complain.
yeah,
But I kind of wish they had just made her a new character. I mean, they
right,
could have even had her be Flag Smasher and just made her be a new character, but instead, like
yeah,
the original Flag Smasher was named Carl, and they named this one Carly. And I'm just
Harley.
kinda like, just make a new character, man. This is pretty
Yeah,
much a new character. So
right.
just make a new character. You can still
Yep.
call her Flag Smasher, but just give her a different name
Yeah, yeah.
for a real life name.
We're picking nits here though.
Yeah, I'm totally picking nits.
Yeah.
But just because I'm picking nits doesn't mean I didn't enjoy it. I did enjoy it. So, Let's see what else we got.
I will, before we get too far away from that, I am gonna say that I really appreciated the kind of it was a bit of a tip of the hat to Cap killing Baron Blood in the comics. The way John killed that Flag Smasher guy with the shield over his head.
Yeah,
he didn't take his head off. Yeah, but it looked going to.
but Baron Blood had it coming, and he was a vampire.
He was a vampire. He was already dead, technically.
Yeah, that's how you gotta kill a vampire. But but yeah, this guy is like, man, John Walker just like flipped out on this guy and just straight up murdered him in front of like a ton of witnesses who are all like, since it's the 21st century, they're all like,
yep. I think it's pretty safe to say he's not Captain America anymore. So all those people who had a problem with it online don't have to worry about that anymore.
He won't be Captain America for much longer, I don't think. In the comic book, what happens is basically after the whole thing with his parents and him killing the bunch of watchdogs and his identity is exposed and everything like that, is like, it's around that time that they decide they can't have him be Captain America anymore.
Anyway. Right.
And he himself winds up giving the shield back to Steve, being like, look, they're not going to let me do this anymore anyway. And if they pick somebody themselves, they might pick somebody even worse than me. And you're the guy to do this job. It'd be interesting if they did that with Sam. Like if they had him give the shield to Sam specifically in that sort of manner. So I don't know if that's what they're planning on doing, because obviously they're taking a lot of liberties, and they can't really tell that particular story the way they did in the comic because Steve ain't around anymore. So,
right.
But for him to give the shield to Steve's chosen successor, I think that would hit the right notes. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm kind of worried at this point. I'm a little bit worried that they're gonna do the they're giving us a bit of bait and switch, or I don't know if I would understand the motivation of them doing such a thing, but I'm worried they're gonna give the shield to Bucky at the end of this thing. I'm worried instead of Sam getting it like he was supposed to, like we thought he was going to do after Endgame, that they're going to end up making Bucky the next Captain America in the MCU. Which, I mean, I know there are a lot of people who are fans of that idea, but I never really was. I have to say that I'm not, as much as I love the Winter Soldier, especially the MCU version, I'm not that big a fan of bringing Bucky back to life.
Like, I guess that would make sense from like a comic book perspective.
Yeah.
Of, like, Bucky was, Captain America before Sam was Captain America, so it would honor the timeline as far as that goes. But honestly, like, I don't feel like it works as well with the MCU versions of the characters and how they've got everything set up now to have Bucky become Captain America at this point. Before Sam does. And I'm not saying that there can't be a storyline eventually where, Bucky does take up the mantle. And there's ways they could do that where it would make sense. But I kind of don't want to see that happen, like, right now. I kind of feel like that bait and switch is the right way to put it when you're talking about having this show at the climax be somebody other than Sam Wilson being the guy who's Captain America.
Yeah. I want Sam to have his chance. I want Sam to be Captain America for a while. I don't want them to pass him over.
Yeah. Well, like I've always said, like ever since Steve gave him the shield at the end of Endgame, is I kind of feel like Steve Rogers as Captain America is irreplaceable. There's no getting around that. And to me, what I liked about the idea of Sam being Captain America is him being a guy who knows he can't possibly live up to the legend of Steve Rogers, but he's going to bring it and give it 110%. And to me, that's kind of like, that's like the most Steve thing you could do is have something that's like completely impossible and being like, you know what, I'm going to try to do it anyway, and I'm going to pull it off. So it's kind of a paradox for me to say, like, I think he's the perfect guy to be Captain America because he can't be Captain America as good as Steve, and that's just going to make him push himself that much harder. I know it sounds like it doesn't make any sense, but
no, it makes
it makes sense. I'm just not good at putting it into the words.
Yeah.
So, but hopefully
Okay.
you all out there are following me on this anyway.
To turn things around, I can imagine that Bucky would be the kind of guy where he's Captain America and he realizes he can't be Steve, so he's just not going to try to be. He's just going to keep being who he is, which is not Captain America. So
yeah. I kind of feel like each of these men would have their own way of being Captain America, which would be completely unique from Steve, but still effective. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those things where, like, I kind of feel like Captain America is different from any other superhero in that you can have somebody else pick up that mantle, but the main thing about Captain America is not so much like, you know, having superpowers or, you know, whatever that it's being somebody that represents something. And to me, what Captain America should represent is the ideal of America and what America ought to be, not necessarily what America is, but what America should be. And you know, like a guy like Sam Wilson, who's talking about how, like, you know, he grew up with nothing and he was raised with his sister on a boat and all this kind of stuff. Like, that's America. That's you know, that's somebody like Bucky, who grew up on the mean streets. And you know, in the Depression. That's America. And it's like, you know,
they brought this up in the latest episode.
Yeah.
They brought it up in the latest episode where she actually threatens was it when she threatened her? Yeah, she threatened Sam's sister. And Sam said, well, you know, their America doesn't care about me, so I don't care, you know, what happens. I forget exactly what she said, but I was like, no, you know what? That might be what, you know, I won't say the reality. That's what the media is saying right now. But in reality, America does care about her. And that's where Flag Smasher's wrong, if you ask me.
Yeah.
She is important to this. And Flag Smasher even said that the shield is a symbol of a world that what did she say? Basically, the shield needs to be destroyed. And so it's like, yeah, that's a pretty good line for her. I kind of think that some people might take that the wrong way and not really understand what was going on there. But what she was saying was that, to me, it was her explaining that she doesn't really understand what the shield is a symbol of and why it's important.
Yeah. Well, it's like I always point out the scene in Daredevil, the comic book of Daredevil that I really like, in the Born Again storyline, when Captain America has his guest appearance in there, and he you know, holds up the flag and he says, "I'm loyal to nothing except the dream."
Yeah.
And to me, that's what he doesn't represent. The American government, certainly. He doesn't represent even the country so much as he represents
the ideal,
what it should be. The American dream. You know, that we are all created equal and that everybody has a shot. You know, maybe that's not true, but it should be true, and that's what he's fighting for.
Yeah.
So
it's the ideal. There was this kind of got brought up in Superman comics and regarding Superman comics a while back, where people were saying that, you know, Superman shouldn't be about truth, justice, and the American way anymore. These are people who don't understand what the American way means, and it doesn't mean what the government, you know, is necessarily doing, or even, you know, the state of, you know, we're getting pretty deep here. I don't know how far I want to go with this, but you know what I'm talking about. The American, the American way is the ideal. It's not what you see on the news. It's not what, the government is trying to push. It's the ideal, the idea that, you know, everybody is created equal, and, you know, we all have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that's still important to me, I think, and that's still something that I think is valid.
Yeah.
Regardless of what you think of America as a political, you know, identity, institution. So yeah,
I mean, like we've got our problems, and I think we're always going to have our problems.
Right.
But I think the most important thing is to try as best we can to move past our problems and get to the point where we should always be striving to make things better.
Yeah. Yep.
I think that's the most important thing. So
I think that's what Superman represents. That's what Captain America represents.
Yeah, it's kind of difficult to discuss this show without getting too political about it, because there's like some politics that are inherent in the show. And you know, I'd heard some people talking about it being woke or whatever like that, but I didn't really see it that way. You know, like they did deal with some of the casual racism that does go on. You know, that you know, black people frankly have to deal with sometimes, and they shouldn't have to deal with it. You know, but it's just, you know, part of the world, I guess. And you know, like apparently some people were upset about that, but I'm just kind of like,
there shouldn't be anybody who's upset. There shouldn't be anybody who's upset about them addressing it, because it is something that happened.
Yeah, I mean, like,
it's part of our reality, and it's something that should be addressed.
I feel like it would almost be irresponsible if they didn't address racism in a show where a black man is going to become Captain America.
Right.
You know, it's something that I kind of feel like if they didn't do that, it wouldn't be real. You know, it wouldn't be like it would be kind of gutless. You know what I mean? And like I said, irresponsible.
Right.
You know, it's something that needs to be addressed in that story.
Baron Zemo. Baron Zemo is
awesome.
He was the character that I was hoping. You know, even the dance.
Yeah.
He's the character that I was hoping he would be in the movies, and they kind of, you know, like they didn't. I'm glad he's an actual Baron now.
Yeah.
They finally, you know, brought that part of the character in, because in the movie in Civil War they never even referred to him as Baron, not once. They didn't make any kind of. I mean, he was, as far as we know, he was just a soldier.
Yeah.
My idea was that, you know, he's Baron Zemo from the comics. It would not have been hard for them to make him. You know, there are a lot of countries with monarchies where the nobles, the royalty, you know, the nobility are required to serve in the military. And it would have made perfect sense. Not only that, I think it would have made the character stronger in Civil War if he had said, you know, not only did I lose my family, but I also lost the country that, you know, I'm, you know, part of the ruling class of, or whatever. If he had actually been a Baron, and I'm glad they brought that in now, and we can see that he's, you know, obviously somebody who's a part of royalty, and he's clearly got money and he's connected, so he's much more like the character in the comics.
I never made a secret about how I was really disappointed with how Baron Zemo was portrayed in the movie, because I thought he was really bland and just. What, other than the name Zemo, was pretty much nothing like the guy I knew from the comic book. And it always kind of irritated me that, and this is not to defend the Jesse Eisenberg version of Lex Luthor, but it always bothered me that people who had, you know, were very critical of the Jesse Eisenberg version of Lex Luthor had no problem at all with Zemo in Civil War. Yeah. And I'm just like, man, like, that character is further from Baron Zemo in the comic book than Eisenberg's Luthor is from the comic book Luthor. And at least he wasn't boring. You know? It's like you can talk about how he's more like the Riddler and he's kind of goofy and everything like that, but he was interesting to watch for me. Yeah, maybe he was kind of annoying, but he wasn't dull. And I kind of felt like the movie version of Zemo was dull. And I don't think that was the fault of the actor at all, because clearly he's doing a bang-up job on the show. I'm a many things to work with in the movie.
I'm a big fan of Daniel Bruhl. I've loved everything he's done so far, including Civil War. I didn't find him necessarily boring.
His acting wasn't bad. It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't his acting. It was the way the character was written. There just was like nothing to him. I mean, he was a guy with a good plan, but you know what I mean? It's just not like they didn't give him a whole lot to do as far as being a supervillain. And on this, I feel like they're giving him tons to do as far as being a supervillain. And he's great. Doing up scenery the way a supervillain oughta, and it's great. I'm loving it.
If you ask me, he's the best part of the show so far. Yeah, it hasn't been in too many episodes yet, but I'm really, really loving what they're doing with him so far.
Yeah. So,
and the costume's awesome.
I like the way they did his costume, where like he's got the jacket with like the fur collar and just the purple mask, and I'm like, that's what I wanted. That's what I always wanted.
Yeah.
It's just like, here it is, finally. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So
totally something they could have done in Civil War. Civil War to me was one of the weaker. I know a lot of people really loved it. People seem to give the MCU an awful lot of slack when it comes to certain things. And, you hardly ever find too many people who are willing to talk a lot of trash about the MCU. But Civil War to me was one of the weaker entries in that series. I had quite a few issues with it. I had issues with the source material too. I wasn't a big fan of the Civil War comic. That's actually the comic. That was the last Marvel comic I bought.
And I kind of felt like most of the stuff that was really iconic in Civil War, they already did in Winter Soldier. Like the bit with Captain America taking out a jet. Like that was from the comic book of Civil War, and they put it in Winter Soldier. Captain America basically like having to take out that SHIELD program with the helicarriers and everything like that. It was kind of similar to how Captain America was on the run and everything in Civil War. And it was basically everything I liked about Civil War, other than him fighting Iron Man. And Spider-Man, obviously. They didn't have Spider-Man yet, but they didn't really get the Spider-Man part anywhere near. They couldn't have done Spider-Man the way it was in Civil War. Not with, a high school Spider-Man, again. But yeah, it's like, it came out the same year as Batman v Superman, and everybody was just dogpiling on Batman v Superman that year, and I had a lot of people saying, I remember seeing a lot of people saying how Civil War was so much better than Batman v Superman, and I disagree completely. And I think time has proven me correct, because Civil War is just kind of like, at this point, it's just kind of like a blip, like a little footnote in Marvel history.
If anything, it's a bridge to better things in the MCU.
Yeah, and like, obviously Infinity War, I think, kind of stole any thunder that one had as far as being like a big crossover kind of thing. And nobody really talks about Civil War that much anymore.
No.
Unless they're talking about it within the parameters of the wider Marvel Cinematic Universe. But I still see people talking about Batman v Superman all the time. That's a movie that left an impression, whether you like it or not. And I loved it. So
me. Yeah. I'm right there with you.